Welcome to the Father David Homily Podcast, a part of St. Anne's Catholic Church in Richmond Hill, Georgia.
How to be a man. Living first as a regular teenager, then a college student, then a seminarian, then becoming a priest, a celibate man, and then how to figure out my relationship with women, with men, with children, with the society, and how to live out a true image and not false image of masculinity that we are being bombarded with. And so I wanted to start with the first example. I'll give you 3 examples today, and it's part 1 of this homily. So I will be pointing out the crisis, the problems, then we will unpack it and kind of try to see how it influences our daily lives in 21st century, the next homily I preach. And then the last one maybe will be about solution, like what can we do as men and women to help the society and help men live out true masculinity. So the first example I want to use is King Herod. So it's a biblical example. Now we know King Herod as a very powerful man, right? Because he is the king of Israel. Now the king of Israel can basically do whatever he wants. If he wants to kill somebody, we know that he will kill somebody and there are no consequences for him. If he wants to take a woman that is not his wife, we know from the example of King Herod that he does it and he does it publicly and he thinks there are no consequences. So we have a very powerful man in whom there is some goodness. We know that because when he's challenged by John the Baptist, he says that even though what John the Baptist tells him terrifies him, he likes to listen to him. Because it seems like King Herod is able to recognize the voice of God through John the Baptist. Now what is his biggest problem? King Herod's. Well, he reveals few problems that he has with himself. And then the one problem that is not in himself, but it's the person next to him, which is the wrong kind of woman next to him. Which is the woman that is, instead of inspiring this man to be a virtuous man, beautiful man, whole man, she inspires him to be a wicked man, an evil man, because she is self-centered and she doesn't really know what love is. And so I would call him a man who has the wrong kind of woman next to him. And remember, because many people will say it's fate. It's predisposed. It's God arranged it that way that I'm with this woman and that I am with this man. What's a false statement? Because when you come to marriage preparation, one of the first questions we ask at the first meeting that has to be asked, and you guys are separate, so we ask the man to leave the room and then we ask the woman to leave the room. I ask, are you entering into this marriage in full freedom, or is anyone making you enter this marriage? No, full freedom. Is anyone making your future spouse to enter this marriage against his or her will? No, we are in freedom. We have made a decision to enter into this marriage. You have made a choice to be with this woman, whether she is virtuous or not, and with this man, whether he is virtuous or not, whether he loves God or not. It's your decision. Because if it were not your decision, by default these marriages would be invalid. Freedom is required. So we have a man, all-powerful, but he reveals that he's really a child. An adult man, a child. How do we know that? Well, first weakness, when there is a party going on at his palace, he drinks. He drinks, and the more he drinks, the less control he has over his senses and over his reason. How do we know this? Well, because there's a girl dancing and he likes the dance. And he likes it so much that he even says to the girl, even if I give you half of my kingdom, he's drunk. And he's willing to give half of his kingdom because the girl dance, is nice to him. So, Herodias is the woman, his lover, who is the wife of his brother Philip. So, by God, they're not supposed to be in this union. God does not bless this union. And John the Baptist is the only person, not even the priests, the Pharisees or the Sadducees, they are so politically correct to the bone that they will not even challenge their own king because they fear for their life, right? Because they're more about, let's preserve the status quo, let's not bother the king. But John the Baptist comes out and says, not even you can do this. Now here is a man in control of himself. Now here is a man of God. So the first quality, I guess, that I would like to emphasize for healthy masculinity is our journey towards control. We are to be in control of ourselves. If we lose control by drinking or by passion, so with Herod was drinking and passion, he was so passionate for women that he was willing to forfeit his soul to get the pleasure he wanted. And by drinking, he was losing his mind. He was willing to give half of his kingdom to a girl that was dancing. And so the woman that comes into play, Herodias, says to the girl, if he asks for something, tell him that you want the head of John the Baptist. And what does he do? He cries, he's devastated, he doesn't want to kill John the Baptist, but because of his inability to control himself, to be a wise man and of control of himself, he gives in. He kills the greatest prophet ever born and a cousin of Jesus. Probably that's why when Jesus is led before Herod, Herod doesn't hear a word from Jesus. Jesus ignores him, is silent towards him. Now, the second one that I want to propose is a secular, completely secular example of a man that all of us know, and it's Rocky Balboa. So, that's right. And his wife. Because, not only because you will always remember this example, but also because when I watch the movie, and I've watched it many times, ever since I was a teenager, there's something fascinating about this man. Not only his relationship with his wife, but the second thing that I would like to show, that it's not being seen a lot in 21st century, is a man who is willing to show his vulnerability. He's willing to be vulnerable in front of his wife. He's willing to be humble enough, true enough, to show that he needs her in order to be man, to feel like a man, to be a fighter. How do I see that in the movie? Well, Rocky is Rocky, right? We know how he is. And he gets the fight of his lifetime. He fights the fight, and there is times he doesn't win, but he gets a lot of money. And since he's not used to having money, he spends it very quickly on gadgets and things that he always wanted, and then he finds himself and his new wife in need. And so he starts playing in those ridiculous commercials, like silly commercials, that make him feel like a loser. Because he cannot read, he's slow in reading, and everybody's making fun of him. And he looks at his wife, and he feels embarrassed in front of her. So he tells her, I am a fighter. I cannot do this. And he begins to train against her will for a second fight. And what is revealed in this movie is this. Every time he does something without the approval of his wife, he can't do it. He's not happy. So it's like you guys. If your wife is against something that you do, and you do it anyway, yeah, you got it. You got what you want, but you never feel at peace with it. You never feel completely happy because you know you come back home or you look at your wife and she will give you the, silent treatment or whatever that is in your house. That's the moment. And so finally, because she loves him, she wants to protect him, doesn't want him to fight because she's concerned for her health, and she says, I would rather be poor than you getting hurt. But eventually, because she loves him and she sees that in order for him to regain masculinity and he's vulnerable in front of her, she says, okay, I'll support you. And then he begins the training like a different man. He has the goal in front of his eyes, he has the energy, he wants to do it. Now, in our times, guys and ladies, I am very confused, and I've always been confused. As a teenager, I thought being a man, a masculinity meant you look tough, right? You look cool, you get the right car, right? You get to the right places. And there's the confusion is still now. Now when I look out and I see a tough guy or tough looking guy coming out of a tough looking truck and going to a gym and pumping iron and being all big and tough. Now, is that an image of true masculinity? Or is it the guy with little children and his wife every step of the way who will say no to his friends, who will say no to distractions and say like, well, I've laid down my life for my wife. Like, is that the true man? Is that true masculinity? Or is the guy who, is changing women as he wishes to, and he's never really stuck in one place where he needs to be challenged and he needs to grow and he needs to face crisis and solve it? Rocky is an interesting man because he shows that man by himself does not have it all. He needs someone to give him the energy, to give him feedback, to look at him in order so he feels like a man. In that case, is that beautiful intimate relationship between a wife and a husband that needs to be nurtured. And the third example that I want to give today, the last one, is from the book of Genesis. And of course, it's Adam and Eve. So we have Adam first. Adam is Adam. He by himself, he cannot figure it out. He's not happy. And so God creates the woman. And Adam and his wife are both naked, but it doesn't bother them. Why? Because they're innocent. They don't know what naked is. They're innocent. They have no sin. They don't know what concupiscence is, tendency to sin. So they don't even notice they're naked. They're in harmony with God, with each other. But then Satan comes in the form of the snake, and here is the image. A woman left to herself without the one who's supposed to be there to protect her. A woman left to herself. Now, do we see more and more women in our times left to themselves, with children oftentimes, and the men figuring it out very quickly and just going somewhere else, getting another relationship and another relationship, whatever, never really growing up? A woman left to herself is in danger. In that case, it's Eve. Now, what is Adam doing? Adam is not being where he's supposed to be. Sometimes, that image in my head, it would be this, a young couple, they are married recently and they just have a child, and the mother, let's say she's overwhelmed, she just had a pregnancy, post-pregnancy, whatever is going on, the child, and the husband sitting, let's say, this is just an example, he's sitting on the couch and playing video games. And she's left to herself. She doesn't have a companion. She doesn't have someone who is willing to lay down her life because he's still struggling with what I want to be. Well, you entered marriage, which is supposed to end those things because you're supposed to now lay down your life. Now, the culture today does not inspire self-sacrificial love. We know the culture inspires me, and I, all about me. And that's why so many people are very confused. But I tell you, if you are growing up, like I was growing up, without the gaze of the Father, it takes away your self-confidence. You're very confused. You don't know how you're supposed to be as a man. And it does the same to the woman who is left behind. She loses, the feeling of beautiful, lovable, femininity is confused. What did I do wrong? And it never ever stops, because the echo of Adam and Eve's sin continues. Sin, 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 sin. Selfishness, selfishness, selfishness. And we are all, after all, even within the Catholic Church, very confused. Because instead of laying down our lives, we are picking up the ideas of femininity and masculinity that are wrong, distorted from the world. Who is them? Adam's attitude, is a good example of what is going on. Many men do not know what to do, or what is their place, what is their role, and they shy away from it because it is easier. How many times I meet a very attractive woman with children and no men. No men. And I'm not saying like it's all men's fault, all men's problem. No. We will go back to it in a few months when we talk about femininity. And even next time I preach. But there is a huge crisis. That something is happening to us. Or men shying away from faith formation at home. I'm too busy. I do the work. I bring the money. So you teach the children how to pray. But do you check on it? Are you involved when you have time? I cannot teach all the children our faith formation directly as a priest. It's impossible for me physically. But do I check on our CCD teacher? Do I not have meetings with her and make sure that things are the way I want them to be? Do I not walk and visit and ask for feedback? I'm responsible at the end, but I check on it. Sometimes responsibilities that are always assigned to the male figure at home are not fulfilled by the male figure, and the woman is struggling. Or sometimes, gentlemen, your voice is missing. When a teenage boy or a teenage girl now suddenly decides she's not going to go to church, she's not going to go to church, she's not going to pray. Mother is like pulling, we got to go. And father sometimes, silent. Well, you're not supposed to be silent. Your voice is different. It carries much more weight of authority when you say it, when you roar as a lion at home. Babies know, children know that Father has spoken. And oftentimes, my friends, this is missing. Something has happened. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more and then look for a solution.